Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. The government should reopen before the end of the week, but Democrats have already signaled that they will stick to their demands when funding runs out again in January. Will we see another shutdown? President Trump commemorating Veterans Day in Arlington Cemetery and asserting his administration's peace through strength posture. Flags, marching bands, and thousands of New Yorkers are filling Fifth Avenue today to honor our nation's veterans. Our reporter is on the ground with the latest. President Trump floats the idea of a 50-year mortgage. Will this make homes more affordable? More than 120,000 victims, $6 billion in Bitcoin, and now 11 years behind bars. A Chinese woman who ran a massive crypto Ponzi scheme fled to London to launder the money and live lavishly.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Thank you for joining us today. President Trump laying a wreath in Arlington Cemetery in ceremony to commemorate the sacrifices of the American veterans, and the president proclaiming Veterans Day Victory Day for World War I. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu, who's at the White House. Good afternoon, Mari. What can you tell us about President Trump spending this Veterans Day?
Don, good afternoon. Yes, today President Trump is spending Veterans Day in Virginia at Arlington National Ceremony, where he laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier from World War I. And Vice President Vance, who himself was formerly an American Marine, then introduced President Trump for his remarks, where he thanked U.S. veterans for their sacrifices, which the president says enables citizens to pursue the American dream today. Take a look.
We gather to fulfill the sacred duty of every free man and woman. On Veterans Day, we honor those who have worn the uniform, who have borne the battle, who have stood to watch, and whose ranks have formed the mighty wall of flesh and blood, bravery and devotion that has defended our freedom for 250 years. Today, to every veteran, we love our veterans, we say the words too often left unsaid. Thank you for your service. Thank you very much.
President Trump also honored a few veterans present in the audience by name, such as an Air Force helicopter pilot in Vietnam and a Medal of Honor recipient. He also acknowledged members of his administration who were present at the ceremony, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, for what he called the, quote, big victory of the government being on the verge of reopening this week. And meanwhile, President Trump is also proclaiming Veterans Day to be Victory Day for World War I, touting his administration for bringing back what he calls American military might, and what the Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth has called the warrior ethos. Take a look.
Today is not only Veterans Day, but it's my proclamation that we are now going to be saying and calling Victory Day for World War I. Victory Day. We're restoring the pride and the winning spirit of the United States military. That's why we have officially renamed the Department of Defense back to the original name, Department of War. We don't like being politically correct, so we're not going to be politically correct anymore. From now on, when we fight a war, we only fight for one reason, to win. We fight to win.
President Trump today also touts his administration's initiatives in combating veteran homelessness. He especially focused on an executive order that he signed back in May, which established the National Center for Warrior Independence, which is to house 6,000 homeless veterans by 2028. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you very much. As one of New York City's most cherished traditions, the annual Veterans Day Parade has kicked off along Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. NTD's Dave Martin is on site. Dave, what's going on out there? Give us an update.
Hey, Don. Yeah, I'm at 5th and 27th Street. This is pretty much where the parade begins. It started about 90 minutes ago, and I got to say, it's definitely cold here in New York City. Temperatures in the 30s. It's windy. There's a few snowflakes coming down. But, of course, the focus is on the veterans. And I talked to several of them earlier. Let's listen to what they said.
I'm the 6th New Yorker, native New Yorker, to actually wear a uniform in my family, and we all went to wars going back to World War I. So it's always been special, that family connection with me. And then again, you know, we always say it's not just a parade, it is the largest veterans reunion in the country.
All my friends that I have lost over the years, I served from 1970 to 1976 in the United States Army. And later on, I rejoined the Army at the end of 1976. Keep alive all those that did not make it. And that's why I continue to serve. I'm a member of the American Legion for 45 years.
Yeah, Veterans Day is a day for us veterans. We serve the country. That's what veterans do, serve our country, give up our lives. You know, to sign a check on that dotted line and stuff, we're up to our lives. That's what Veterans Day is for me. You know, for all the veterans.
Yeah, so a lot of pride here in their country. A lot of veterans look like they're very glad to be honored here today. Now, this parade, I'm here at 27th. This goes all the way down to 46th Street. We've got 20,000 service members planning to come through. There are 280 plus marching bands. We've got 25 plus floats, 150 vehicles, very nice vehicles there. So quite a parade they're putting on here, Don.
Well, all right, Dave, try and keep warm. Thank you very much. The House of Representatives must vote on the bill to end the shutdown before the president can sign it into law and reopen the government. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has the details on the latest from Congress.
It's going to be good to get back on that floor tomorrow and vote for this continuing resolution, the same one basically that we voted on September 19th to fully fund the government. And now 3 appropriation bills that we have previously passed are going to be attached to that.
Congress is back in session for the first time in over a month, and the House of Representatives has teed up a vote on the amended continuing resolution passed by the Senate to reopen government. But the deal reached by Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats only punts the funding battle to the end of January 2026, and Democrats have not ruled out forcing another shutdown.
There's going to be another funding deadline come January 30th if this proposal goes through. If you don't get what you guys want on AC, are you willing to shut the government down again?
I mean, we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it. Right now, we're focused on dealing with the bill that's coming over from the Senate.
House Democrats have voiced their disappointment with Senate Democratic leadership and have signaled that they will reject the vote to reopen government.
Very frustrated with Schumer and the Republicans. What I heard from most of my colleagues is that we in the House want to stand strong. I mean, he's got 8 Democrats going rogue here. He himself voted against them, and that's not leadership. You know, that's not leadership at a time when we desperately need leadership to stand up to Donald Trump.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson has not guaranteed that any deal to extend or reform the ACA healthcare subsidies that has reached in the Senate will receive a vote on the House of Representatives.
Look, we're going to do in the House what we always do, and that is a deliberative process. I mean, we have to find consensus on whatever their proposal is. As you know, I do not guarantee the outcome of legislation.
Democrats are already mulling over their strategy and demands for the upcoming funding battle in January 2026.
And we need to have strategic decision-making as a caucus in both the House and the Senate, which is to say, when we align on our asks for the January funding deadline, they need to be things that are impactful for the middle class, and they need to be deliverable.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson will need all Republicans in the House of Representatives to vote to reopen government or rely on a few Democrats to join Republicans in order to end the shutdown. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The Federal Aviation Administration is cutting flight capacity nationwide even as Congress moves closer to ending the government shutdown. And President Trump says his administration is working to modernize the United States air traffic control system.
Yeah, sure. It'll be much better than normal because we're buying the most sophisticated avionics and, technology for our control towers. We're in final bids of getting the finest system, anywhere in the world. I've analyzed it. Sean Duffy has been working really hard on it, doing a fantastic job, by the way. And over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be handing out the finest air traffic control system anywhere in the world. All the towers will be equipped.
Starting today, the FAA says flights across the country will be reduced by 6%. The cuts follow a 4% reduction last Friday, with plans to increase to 10% by the end of the week. Air traffic controllers are set to miss a second paycheck today, and the staffing shortage has already caused thousands of flight cancellations nationwide. The Senate passed a temporary funding measure that will end the government shutdown if approved by the House and signed by the president. Joining us to discuss is Mike Leon, host of the Can We Please Talk podcast, and we have Tony Kinnett, national correspondent of the Daily Signal and host of the Tony Kinnett Cast radio show and podcast. So, as always, good to see you guys on this Tuesday afternoon, and happy Veterans Day. So, Tony, I want to go to you first. Your first thoughts when you heard Democrats joined Republicans to vote for this bill?
I mean, it was expected. Unfortunately, there were obviously going to be individuals, especially inside of the purple state, and also with Tim Kaine and his large amount of federal workers as his constituents in Virginia. This was always going to happen. We understood they were going to flake. They tried to run a really tough line and say, oh, we're doing this to extend Obamacare subsidies. And then when they were asked why Obamacare subsidies needed to be extended, if the program was so great, when you and I and everyone in the country was told it was going to be wonderful, well, why did these subsidies need to be extended? Why did Biden's COVID subsidies need to continue on ad nauseum? They had no answer. And as the country continued to look at the failure of the shutdown, eventually people like Cortez Masto were able to rally a couple other purple senators and kind of the more moderate establishment to her side, and they broke the back. Unfortunately, it had to take this long.
Okay, so Mike, let me go to you. What's your perspective?
Yeah, good to see you guys this afternoon. It's a little similar. I think the biggest thing was, last week when we were on here, Tony said maybe the consequences of the election and what would happen would play a factor. Well, it did, but not in the way that you think. None of these senators are on the ballot in 26, right? And Angus King, who's, sometimes caucuses with Democrats, is an independent. So when you look at it just from that perspective, when you look at there's no consequences that any of these senators will face in 2026, given the consequences of what happened in 2025 with this, election on the off year, I think it kind of sent the message of these were the right Democrats that could actually do this because they wouldn't face the potential blowback at the ballot box. And like we've talked about, look, I traveled this week to New York and back for my brother's wedding. I dealt with flight delays, taxiing delays as well, getting to the gates. You've seen the videos. NTD has posted it on their social media about pilots, getting on the loudspeaker and saying, hey, we're going to be about maybe 3-4 hours delayed here. So there's a huge impact. But not only that, there's a safety. And as we said before, Don, as you said before we came on, there are people that are going to be missing a second and maybe tertiary paycheck coming up here, depending upon how the vote goes on Wednesday. So it's good to see it finally potentially window down. But like Tony said, maybe this could have been avoided earlier. But to my overarching point, we're going to be back here in January talking about a looming government shutdown and how we figured this all out.
Okay, so Tony, like Mike said, those senators that voted for the bill are not on the ballot for 2026. What do you think persuaded these Democrats to vote for the bill?
Well, two things. Number one, according to some of the reporting from Axios, members of the House in their own state, because yes, there are some House Democrats that are on the ballot in those states. Again, all of the House. So when you look at 2026 in the House is already being tenuous for Democrats as it is. The idea that there might be some individuals, not, Seth Moulton, for example, who's trying to undercut senior Democrats in Massachusetts. But when you look at other House members across the country, there are those that don't believe that the current strategy right now of playing hardball ad nauseum is really effective. They see it's not what Americans want. We saw that in Pennsylvania. We've seen that in Georgia, although Ossoff and Warnock haven't necessarily played to that tune yet. I think realistically, though, what got a lot of these people to finally end up kind of calling it quits on this particular shutdown is that they were never going to get what it was that they wanted, because what it was that they were asking for was completely ridiculous. And there was no argument to make for another year, as again, air travel in this country has been completely crippled. There's no reason it should be like this. And now, of course, the upgrades that were already set in place to pick up after the mess that Pete Buttigieg should have solved and then wasted money and time to ignore. Those are things that now have to be factored into this series of delay reconciliation. And so if you're Dick Durbin, yeah, you do eventually have to figure it out because O'Hare has to function one way or the other.
So, Mike, do you agree with that one point that Tony said, that the Democrats were never going to get what they were asking for, and that's why they voted for this package?
Yeah, I mean, yes. It's short answer, yes. I do. I agree with what he's saying in terms of they were never going to get exactly what they wanted. They were trying to hold the line, and there was one potential line in the sand, and this was kind of the one that they could potentially make. So I will agree with that. Let me just push back on something Tony said there, because under Pete Buttigieg with the DOT, one of the big things that Buttigieg did was focus on holding the airlines accountable. Right? So flight delays that impact consumers, making sure you're refunded and notified by the airlines. He focused more on that, whereas you see Secretary Duffy's focusing more on the archaic system and how, air traffic control handles this. So those are two different ways of the way they're going about it. And I think, yes, there were some failures under Pete. Maybe there's been some failures under Duffy, but again, a lot of it has dealt with the government being impacted. Doge cuts first initially, and now you have a government shutdown. None of that's going to help him and his department. I think if you injected him with truth serum, he would definitely tell you that. But in terms of the Democrats here, real quick on this, again, I'll say this again. The Republicans are in charge of the government. There was a mandate in the election that every Republican strategist and their mother told me on every news outlet I've ever been on over these last 10 months that the country wanted Republicans in charge. So because the country wanted Republicans in charge, they now have to figure out how to govern. What does that mean? That means that these ACA subsidies that were being fought for by the Democrats, now Donald Trump is in this inalienable position where, position where now he actually has to come up with a healthcare plan to replace this. He ran on it in 2016. We haven't seen a healthcare plan that has come to fruition from Republicans. So that will be the interesting thing in all of this, because like Tony said, they didn't get the concessions that they wanted. But now I'm seeing Republicans start to flip their message to like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, we could all roll our eyes on the 180 she's done, but now everyone's starting to talk about, well, what's the new healthcare plan going to look like? If you didn't make the concessions on this, what is your plan, especially that you can take out on the road with you in 2026 from the Republican perspective? So that is what is going to be the next wave that we're going to be talking about over these next couple of months. If we don't get another CR passed or actually a funding bill throughout the whole fiscal of 26, is going to be about the healthcare plan that Republicans are potentially going to put forward.
So, Tony, can you talk a little bit about the Affordable Care Act? Leader John Thune promised the Senate will vote on it. The subsidies in December. How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, I think there's going to be a series of rules that are put forward that are essentially trying to keep fungible amounts of different states from going to those who aren't supposed to be receiving federal assistance. We've seen this, of course, on the data in California, Minnesota, et cetera. But of course, I don't believe we're going to see those subsidies passed in December because the Obamacare, the Affordability Care Act, it's a complete failure. And that's not me saying that. That's Senator Peter Welch of Vermont saying that, Democrat on the Senate floor. It's a failure. We were told it was going to be the savior of the American healthcare system. It was a complete abysmal failure. We threw more money at it. Then we threw more money at it. Then we threw extra subsidies on top of the more money we threw at it. It's a failure. So, I mean, before we get into the conversation of, well, what's the magical plan? The system that we had before was far better than this. And we came in and we, like a bull in a china shop, we knocked everything over, as the left often does. And now there's nothing to actually put back together. And so I'm going to kind of push back just a little bit, Mike, on the, well, where's the plan? Again, I don't recall asking anyone to come in and tear apart the system that we had, which was not perfect and had its own issues. But now that the Democrat system of throwing infinite amounts of money at the healthcare system that fails and insurance premiums are skyrocketing, and the idea that the last administration went after kind of consumer choice instead of fixing the systemic issues at play, just throwing another coat of paint on it and throwing more money and hoping the building stays up isn't working. And so this administration is going through and is picking apart some of that mess. There are a couple of proposals that I've heard. I hope that a privatized healthcare system is the way that we move to, which opens up and deregulates and allows individuals to try different things. We're seeing this right now in, as we've talked about, in the ocular field. We've seen this in the in the cardiovascular fields now with some of the stuff coming out of Florida. And then, of course, we've seen this regarding weight loss drugs, not to mention anti-allergy medication, things like that. The injections for when you're having an allergic reaction. I don't know why that's not coming to my mind at the moment. Those are areas the market is starting to compete because they've been deregulated. That needs to happen across the board.
All right, Mike, any points from Tony that you'd like to respond to?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's a fresh coat of paint. I think the ACA was well intentioned. And again, as somebody right now who's a private contractor who has to rely on the ACA to, get insurance for my family, there's issues with it. Not only what you're paying monthly is obviously way cheaper than what you would pay if you had a W-2 contract job and you lost your job and you had COBRA benefits. It's way cheaper than that, but the coverage is not the same, right? And obviously everybody has killed Obama already on the, you could keep your doctor and keep the insurance or whatever the slogan was. I'm forgetting it at this moment. You all know what it is. And that none of that came true, obviously, because of the options that the ACA offers. But I do want to push back. Tony, I love pushing back, buddy. The biggest thing that I would say is that, it's really up to Republicans to fix this. I don't need more diagnosis of the issue. We've been talking about the issue. We know what the problems are with the ACA. And there's countless stories of people that are, red, white, and blue, no political leaning or no affiliation, that are going through issues with ACA. They want to solve to it. So this is twice now, 45 and 47, that Donald Trump has been president, and we actually haven't seen a plan. And the best instance I can give last night, I was watching a different network. I'm not going to say them here. And there was a Republican strategist that was on there that was talking about, and he got asked point blank, well, what is the plan? And the plan was similar to what Tony said, diagnosing the issue. I don't need more diagnosis of the issue. I want to use a doctor analogy. I know where the pain is. The pain is rotating right here. I need you to fix the pain, even if it's a temporary alleviation of the pain, but I need you to fix it short-term and long-term. And that's the issue that we're having right now. And I think in 25, especially at the ballot box, we saw, and again, people can digest it either way with respect to the numbers and voter turnout, but we saw a little bit of the pushback of what Trump has done on affordability. Now, I think in 26, the message that Democrats will take with them is about where's that health care plan? Because this is what we were fighting for. Republicans got the government back open, right? We played ball. We came across the aisle with them. And now, where's that health care plan? When are we going to fix this? Let's hope to hold them accountable to it.
Okay, Tony, one more response on ACA, and I do want to move the conversation along a bit. Your reaction to calls now for a change in leadership in the Senate, some saying that Schumer couldn't keep his caucus unified.
I mean, of course, he couldn't keep his caucus unified. There have been separate reports from different news agencies suggesting that he gave the wink and the nod. He didn't give the wink and the nod. Schumer's leadership is over. The Democrat Party is now going on young progressives and old suburban women. That seems to be the new two key demographics moving into 26. Big mistake. But alas, I certainly won't get in their way on that one. But regarding the healthcare situation, a full diagnosis is necessary. And the reason I say that is Mamdani. When you look at a diagnosis, it actually matters to determine what the root causes are in order to determine a solution. The left and the right think there are very different causes to this particular ailment on the American healthcare system. So whereas someone like Mamdani has said, oh, it's the evil rich white corporations that are hurting everyone because they're mean and they're, bent over backwards, and insert stereotypes that we were supposed to throw away after the 1930s. No, that's absolutely ridiculous. And we did try the last diagnosis and solution. So if there's a period now, a month, 2 months, where Republicans openly debate, because our caucus doesn't usually go behind doors and unilaterally align, we argue things out in the open, messy and often discordant, then we're going to find a solution that is hopefully better. I can't promise that it'll be better, because whether it's Mike Lawler from New York who wins out, or it's someone more like Thomas Massey, or it's Byron Donalds, or it's the young man out from California that also has a new proposition that's far more moderate than Byron Donalds in that example. I don't know what the solution to that can be. What I want to see is it advocated and argued out in the open until we come with the most deregulated system. That's kind of my answer to that pushback, Mike.
Okay, Mike, I think we do have to wrap up a bit. Any final thoughts you have? Maybe you can respond to calls for a change in leadership in the Senate.
Yeah, well, I mean, the best relationship I have is with Congressman Seth Moulton. Yeah, I've had him on the show a bunch, and he's one of the members of Congress I've been communicating with prior to coming on here to just talk about his vote potentially on Wednesday. And, I do agree with him just in terms of, I know Aaliyah had a famous song, "Age is nothing but a number," but Chuck Schumer is getting up there in age. He wasn't able to keep his caucus together on this. The one thing I've always credited Republicans on my show about is that they stay unified. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is an exception to the rule right now in terms of what she's doing and going on every other network and talking about what Republicans have done wrong, and maybe Thomas Massie, obviously. But I think that unified front, the ability to have a unified message that trickles not only from the chambers of the Senate, but also to the House as well. I think Schumer and Jeffries are leave a little bit left to be desired. And I know not only Seth Moulton has that opinion, who's more of a moderate Democrat, who I think will appeal more on a broader stage because he's an Iraq veteran, because he's somebody that, ran in a purple district and flipped that years ago back in 2014. But I also think that there needs to be more Democrats like a Seth Moulton that, to Tony's point, should hopefully, take over a little bit more of the party and rein the party a little bit more back in from the fringes of the far left.
Well, all right, Tony and Mike, good conversation. As always, thank you very much. Talk to you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
President Trump floats the idea of a 50-year mortgage. Will this make homes more affordable? Stay tuned.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
President Trump this morning warned of significant economic and national security consequences if the Supreme Court were to rule against his global tariffs. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and the president's comment on the deal to end the government shutdown.
If it's a deal I heard about, that's certainly, they want to change the deal a little bit, but I would say so. I think based on everything I'm hearing, they haven't changed anything, and we have support from enough Democrats, and we're going to be opening up our country.
The bill as amended is passed.
Trump says the agreement will prevent money going to illegal immigrants.
We're not going to be giving $1.5 trillion to people that came in from jails and from the gangs and drug dealers and all of these others that they wanted to be given health care, which would have hurt our health care system.
Trump also commented on tariffs, saying the potential unwind of the tariffs would involve numbers in excess of $3 trillion.
The real numbers are trillions of dollars have been taken in or gotten in terms of investment from the tariffs.
The president says it would, quote, truly become devastating to the future of our country, possibly non-sustainable. The Supreme Court case marks a critical test of the legality of Trump's global tariffs. The president's administration justified the tariffs under emergency powers, citing economic and national security considerations. Trump has proposed passing on some of the tariff revenue to the American people.
We're going to issue a dividend to our middle-income people and lower-income people of about $2,000. And we're going to use the remaining tariffs to lower our debt. We're going to be lowering our debt, which is a national security thing.
He also credited the tariffs for contributing to what he described as declines in inflation, particularly in food and energy prices. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is again asking the Supreme Court to allow its National Guard deployment in Illinois, saying federal immigration agents can't handle enforcement on their own. In a new filing, Solicitor General John Sawyer urges extraordinary deference to the president and cites a section of federal law which allows a president to call up the Guard when he is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Illinois and Chicago are challenging the move, accusing the administration of misinterpreting the statute. Lower courts have blocked the deployment, saying Trump hasn't met the legal threshold. The administration says the National Guard is needed to protect federal immigration facilities amid clashes with protesters and for crime prevention. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Trump recently proposed the idea of a 50-year mortgage. Joining us to discuss is public policy analyst and economist Michael Busler, a professor of finance at Stockton University. So, Michael, good to see you as always. Can we get your thoughts on whether this will make home ownership more affordable by extending the loan period to lower monthly mortgage payments?
So the answer is this 50-year mortgage is a good idea and a bad idea. It's a bad idea if someone is purchasing a house that they tend to live in for a long period of time. Most people, they buy a starter house. Typically, you move up one more time. It's usually the third house that becomes what we call your forever house. So if you take out a 50-year mortgage on your forever house, one you're going to be in for a number of years, the amount of interest you're going to pay goes up by hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how much you paid for the house and the interest rate. So from that aspect, it's a bad idea. It's a good idea for somebody looking for a starter house that says, look, I'm only going to stay here 3, 4, 5, 6 years until the value of the house goes up. I build up some equity, and then I'll move into a larger house. From that aspect, it will help a lot of people. So how much will it help? I just ran some numbers quickly. So if you're taking out a $400,000 mortgage today, and the median home price, I think, is over $400,000. So $400,000 makes sense. If you're taking out a $400,000 mortgage, and let's say it's at 5.5%, mortgage rates are a little higher than that now, but they're coming down. 400,000, 5.5%. If you take out a 20-year mortgage, which is what I recommend if you could afford it, the monthly payment would be $2,750, 20-year mortgage. 30-year mortgage, it would drop to $22,270, almost a $500 decrease. A 50-year mortgage, it drops down to $1,960. So for somebody looking for their first house that's having trouble with the monthly payments, taking out a 50-year mortgage will help them to get into their first house. At some point, they buy a starter house, you stay in it for a number of years, and then you move on. At that point, I would recommend a shorter term. And when you get into your forever house, if you can get down to a 20-year mortgage and afford the monthly payments, I think that's the best bet. So this will help first-time home buyers get into houses.
So, Michael, would you say that if this helps first-time buyers, right, by the third house, your forever home, as you call it, by then, would you say that these home buyers would have enough equity built up to be able to afford something like a 20-year mortgage?
So two things happen. One, you'll have equity built up, so your down payment on your next house will be larger, so the amount of mortgage will be smaller. And also 5, 6, 8 years down the road, your income should be much higher than it is when you're looking at your first starter house. So it'll help the people getting started, let people get on their feet, let them build up in their careers, get higher incomes, and then when they move on, look to take a shorter term mortgage.
Would you say this would have any impact on banks or mortgage backers like Freddie Mac, a 50-year mortgage?
Well, assuming, I don't know if any legislation has to happen. I don't think so for this. Now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're sort of quasi-public agencies. They may have to go through some legislation. But from the bank standpoint, they are taking a little more risk in that with the 50-year mortgages, you make your monthly payments, 99% of the payment that you make is interest. So you're doing very little to reduce the equity. So from that standpoint, a $500,000 house, years down the road, you're still going to owe pretty much what the total value of the mortgage is. So it's a little riskier for the banks. What that means is they're likely to charge 1/4 of a point, perhaps even 1/2 a point higher. But still, the monthly payment will now fit into people's budgets, where a 30-year, or typically 25 and 30 are what's mostly used, a 25 or 30-year mortgage, they wouldn't qualify. Their income isn't large enough to carry that monthly payment. A 50-year mortgage, their income may be sufficient to carry that payment and at least gets them into a house. The thing with real estate and owning homes is real estate virtually always goes up in value, typically a couple of % more than the inflation rate. Now, it varies over time, but typically that's what happens. So if you own a home and you're building up equity, you're going to look at something in the future, it'll be a little more money, but you'll have a larger down payment and you'll be able to qualify for a more expensive home. The 50-year mortgage is meant to be for starter homes so people can get into houses. There's other ways we have to work on to get the cost of housing down, that's true, but at least on the mortgage end, this will help somewhat.
So you said that the value of a house virtually always goes up given enough time. So I'm wondering then, for those who are on a 50-year mortgage, would there be any impact to them in the event of a period of a downturn in the housing market?
Well, if you own a home and there's a downturn, there's always an impact. If you think back to 2008 when we had the financial crisis, what the federal government did is they wanted to improve the home ownership rate from the traditional roughly 62% of households up to 70% of households. Now, to do that, they had to come up with very creative mortgages. They had these variable rate mortgages where the teaser rate, the first year was relatively low, and then the payment would go up. But what happened was home values declined. And since people had bought these houses with little down payment, the value of the house ended up being below what the mortgage amount is. And when that happened, people just said, well, there's no sense me paying any more into this. And they just stopped paying. and there was so many that went into foreclosure, it may take a year or two for the banks to catch up to everyone. So there is more of a risk to banks, and if there is a downturn, the risk to the banks will be greater because in the early years, you're paying down very little of the principal. It's not an ideal situation, but it will help people get into their first house.
So, Michael, what do you think is at the root of the issue where homes are becoming more and more unaffordable, so much so that we're talking about 50-year mortgages?
So a few things. Number one, land costs to get a building lot has gone up significantly. Now, the Trump administration has talked about releasing some federal lands to private developers at very low prices to keep the land costs down, and that's a big, should be a big help. Secondly, the techniques we use to build houses are pretty much the same thing we've been doing for the last 50 or 100 years. They're what they call post and beam construction, and we have to start to come up with more efficient ways to do that. Now, the market is responding. They have now modular houses, which are built to the same specifications as on-site houses. However, they're built in a factory, shipped out on a truck, and lifted on a crane into place, and then the houses are finished. On average, that has lowered the construction cost by about 10%. It's also reduced the financing cost because you don't need a construction loan for 9 months or a year. These things can be set and finished in 3 or 4 months. So we need better techniques. And with all the technology and all the AI and all the automation we have today, we're going to have to come up with better ways to build houses to reduce the construction costs. Material costs continue to go up. Labor costs continue to go up. So we're going to have to figure out how to be more efficient with both the materials and the labor to get the manufacturing, the building costs of the house down. If we can get the land costs down, we can now start getting home prices down. One other thing I'll mention is the size of houses has increased significantly, probably in the last 20 or 30 years. The average new home today is about 2,200 square feet. That's a fairly large house. Starter homes are typically in the 12 to 1,500 square foot range. But going forward, again, to keep the costs down, if we make the houses a little bit smaller and have more efficient layouts and room utilization, that'll help to keep the cost down also.
Michael, just one final question, and you just talked about how the private sector can help make housing more affordable. What do you think are some ways that the federal government could do to make buying a home more affordable?
Well, as I said, giving land to builders is at a lower rate, a lower cost is one way to do it. The government likes to support research into new techniques. So if they start supporting some of that research into new techniques to do things, we'll come up with better ways to build the houses to make them more efficient. Now, we've in the last, I don't know, 40 or 50 years, we've worked on making houses more energy efficient. So not only would it be less to build the house, but you have to look at the monthly expense, not just the mortgage, but there's the property taxes, and there's the heating cost, electric cost, et cetera. If we can make the homes more efficient so it uses less utilities to reach the same goals, we'll be able to keep the cost down. Property taxes, I live in New Jersey. Property taxes here are ridiculous. We have to do something, and that's really done at a local level, but we have to do something to get those property taxes down. Now, one thing Congress and President Trump did when they passed the 2017 tax cuts is they said, look, state and local taxes, which used to be deductible on your income tax, will no longer be deductible. The thought was that people in communities, when they hear, well, their taxes are going up a little bit, they say, well, so what? It's tax deductible. It's not going to affect me that much. The idea was, we're not going to have the taxpayers subsidize that anymore. And when they raise your taxes, it's coming out of your pocket. The hope was that that would make people more interested in working with their local communities to try to get those property taxes down also.
Well, all right, Michael. Great hearing your insight. As always, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you, Don. My pleasure to be here.
A public garden has been fighting against the government and realtors for over a decade until New York City Mayor Eric Adams briefly saved its life. Now the new mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani, wants to get rid of it for public housing. Stay tuned for more news after this break.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick. On and off the field, we were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
My 15-year-old son, Ethan, and I had a fun and relaxing morning. We returned home, and Ethan walked to his best friend's house an hour later. I heard the ambulance scream by the street, carrying my beautiful boy. Ethan was shot in the head in his best friend's house with an unsecured gun. He had zero chance of survival. The father, the gun owner, he stored his 3 guns and bullets in a shoebox.
How do you feel?
That has to be the most horrific experience that a human could ever have.
David, would you give any advice?
First thing you do is not keep your ammunition with your weapons, and that your weapons need to be locked at all times.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. Oh, how did I get here?
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
A Utah judge has rejected a new congressional map drawn by Republican lawmakers. The judge instead approved a plan that creates a Democratic-leaning district ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Republicans currently hold all 4 of Utah's U.S. House seats and proposed a map designed to protect them. Judge Diana Gibson ruled the GOP plan unduly favors Republicans and disfavors Democrats. She selected a map submitted by plaintiffs, including the League of Women Voters of Utah. The map keeps Salt Lake County largely in one district rather than splitting the heavy Democratic area across all 4. The ruling gives Democrats a stronger chance to flip a seat in a state that has not elected a Democrat to Congress since early 2021. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has appointed a seasoned fiscal policy expert as his first deputy mayor. Dean Fuleihan brings 40 years of government experience, including his past roles as budget director and deputy mayor under Bill de Blasio. Here's Mamdani.
I am proud to announce my first deputy mayor and my chief of staff, 2 leaders who have deep experience guiding our city and state through challenging moments, possess the fresh, innovative ideas needed to transform our city, and the expertise to help me deliver on the campaign promises that resonated with more than 1 million New Yorkers.
Mamdani also named his State Assembly Chief of Staff to lead City Hall operations. Mamdani says he aims to create a new City Hall, blending experienced leadership with outside voices. Houlihan will oversee major fiscal responsibilities and could help navigate state-level approvals. Mamdani has advocated for publicly funded childcare, transit, and grocery stores, policies that have drawn criticism, including from Governor Kathy Hochul. President Trump criticized Mamdani's victory, but later said his administration will still support New York. Elizabeth Street Garden in New York City is one of the few public green spaces in Manhattan that has been fighting for its existence from being turned into public housing by real estate developers. They had a small victory with Mayor Eric Adams, but the new mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani wants to move forward, destroying it for public housing. NTD Shar Marshall has more.
Hidden in the neighborhoods of Little Italy and Soho is a public garden that has been fighting against realtors and the New York City government since 2013. Elizabeth Street Garden is one of the few nature-filled and aesthetically developed public areas in Manhattan, New York, an oasis of sorts from the crazy hustle and bustle of the inner city, which is why locals have fought so hard to keep it alive. But Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani stated plans to replace it with affordable housing for LGBTQ seniors.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed to hear that. That makes me really upset. I think like everyone fought so hard to make this park be able to stay here, and the fact that that's being threatened again is very disappointing, very sad. And I think this park has actual community, you know, from anyone, any walk of life, and it's just such a peaceful place in the city. So I really hope that doesn't happen, and I think everyone would be extremely disappointed if it did.
In 2013, when neighbors and local business owners learned of plans to develop the area into public housing for senior citizens, they came together to increase public access and started a nonprofit group in 2014 to gain elected official support and a volunteer system to keep the garden open daily. On March 5th, 2019, Elizabeth Street Garden filed a lawsuit against the City of New York and the Department of Housing Preservation and Development with an attorney. The garden was almost victorious in being saved by Mayor Eric Adams in 2025 during his early campaigning for re-election, until they learned that Zohran Mamdani, during his bid for election, said he would rather turn the space into public housing. Since Mamdani has won the mayoral election, the issue has made some of his supporters in opposition to his position on destroying the garden.
I'm bummed about that. I think this park is so beautiful. It's really important. But I also support the new mayor. So I'm kind of at a standstill, I would say. I hope that he has good reasonings, but I also know that Elizabeth Street Garden has a bunch of, I think they had like over 100, I might be wrong, ideas of like other public housing options as a way to keep it open.
And then like maybe a year and a half ago, I found out that it was going to be saved. And it wasn't until today, actually, that my friend had said like, oh, it's back in jeopardy because of the new mayor-elect. Yeah, I support Zohran, and I think I do agree with a lot of his policies, but like what was just said, I think third spaces are really, really important. We don't have many in Manhattan specifically that caters this sort of vibe, but in general, I don't think Manhattan has a lot of third spaces that residents can enjoy, so I do think he should reconsider.
According to a Gothamist article, the garden owes the city $95,000 in back rent, and a judge signing an eviction order back in March put the garden back into the fire. So after years of lawsuits and gaining public and government support, the life of the garden's future is still questionable. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Stealing U.S. technology to start a business in China. A federal jury has convicted Chinese scientist Ji Wang for stealing technology from a U.S. government-funded project. Prosecutors say Wang also pitched the stolen tech to Chinese authorities, saying it had military applications. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the report.
In the early 2000s, Wang was the lead scientist on an $11 million project funded by the Pentagon. The project aims to develop laser fibers that can be used to combat drone threats. After stealing the technology, Wang tried to set up a fiber laser business in China. The DOJ said Wang visited China to pitch the stolen technology to Chinese authorities to secure funding for his business. Wang said it could be used in tanks and that its military use could decide victory or defeat. He started stealing the technology after applying for China's 1,000 Talent Plan award. Under the program, Beijing tempts top scholars to hand over their know-how to China. Wang faces up to 25 years in prison. His lawyer says they'll appeal the convictions.
And if you liked that report, you can find more exclusive China news and in-depth analysis on China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on NTD. An Arctic blast continues its record-setting journey east today. It's impacting certain areas from New York to the Sunshine State. Here's more on this story.
An Arctic blast could bring inches of snow and potentially record-setting cold to parts of the eastern U.S. today. Even Florida could reach historic lows before the polar plunge is done, according to meteorologists.
It's too cold. It's too early. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. It needs to heat back up soon because we're freezing.
Forecasters predict snow near Lake Erie today. Some Midwesterners are still digging out after double-digit accumulations in certain areas yesterday. This Wisconsin man says he marks the first snowfall each year by making snow angels in his swim trunks.
My stepfather came into my life. As a dare, he made me do it, and I've been doing it ever since.
For others, the weather means work rather than play.
I woke up in my normal time thinking we were just going to get the cold air, but this is totally different. This is actually get dressed and actually be outside in the cold.
My wife's over there helping Leslie, and I'm trying to get this running, and I'm going to go across the street and help them. She's at work.
The storm is hitting at the same time as air traffic controller shortages across the country. Chicago's O'Hare Airport reports average delays of more than 5 hours yesterday.
An American aircraft carrier strike group arrived in Latin America today as tensions with Venezuela keep rising. We have more news after this break.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green-lipped mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy 1 bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy 1, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I